Hello, everybody. This is Ann Tucker, and I'm here today having a chat with Tracie Carlos, Parent Path founder and a master appreciator. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Just wonderful, Ann.
Good. Thanks for talking today.
Oh, thank you for having
me. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to continue on the theme of self-care and what it means to take care of yourself. And Tracie, what I'm curious to know, and we haven't touched on this with anyone else yet, is about the relationships you have within your family and how they support your self-care.
I think the most important thing was that I realized I had to set the tone for my own self-care. I had to be the one to take time for me because nobody else could recognize as much as I could that I needed the break. And that was huge. You know, I mean, to even admit that you need a break without the guilt that always followed, or at least that followed me. Once I recognized the value of giving myself, even if it's just a couple minutes at a time, just that little bit of a break just allowed me to be a better mom, be a better woman, be a better wife. So once I recognized that and set the tone for myself, which was not at all as easy as I'm saying it right now, but once I began doing that on a regular basis, the family saw the value in Mom taking a few minutes to herself. So that was huge.
Good. So when you say set the tone, explain that to me, just so I understand what that means. Like, what do you mean by, like, you having to set the tone?
Well, you know, if you are constantly on the go and you're wearing yourself out, you're wearing yourself thin, you can feel within yourself that you're exhausted. I mean, you know, as a parent of children, period, or a child, you get tired anyways because you have to work, you have to take care of the home, you have to take care of your child. And yet, you know, the more children you have, the more work there is to do. But when I say set the tone, you know, if you don't stop yourself and say, I need a 5-minute break, then nobody's going to give that to you. Nobody's going to come in and tap you on the shoulder and say, you know, you look exhausted. Why don't you take 5 minutes out? You know, nobody's going to do that for you. So when you begin to recognize within yourself that you are becoming exhausted and that you are spreading yourself too thin, when my husband would come home from work, I would give him time to transition into being at home after being at work. We would have dinner, and I would go for a 5-minute walk just by myself. And that really just allowed me that small break that I needed to clear my head, to get a little bit of exercise, you know, just to get some fresh air in my lungs. And when I came back, you know, even if it was just around the block, I felt like a new person walking through that door again. And then I was able to continue through the remainder of the evening with all of the things that we have to do. But, you know, for us to set the tone, we have to be the ones to recognize within that we need that break. And if you don't, because for a long time I did not recognize that, I felt guilt over taking a few minutes to myself. I felt guilt over taking a shower. I mean, you know, we just do a number on ourselves. But if you don't recognize that within yourself, as I did not for several years of being a parent when the children were really young, I set myself up for depression. And I set myself up for it and went into depression. So, it was a learning curve for me where, I had to recognize that I had to pull away from my children and my husband just a little bit, just to kind of really fill that cup back up so that I had more to give. And if you don't do that, it's not good for anybody, yourself or your family. So
right. And Tracie, your story sounds so similar to my story because I didn't even, like when you talk about setting the tone, it also, the implication is that you have to have a certain level of self-awareness to even know when you're being spread thin. And just hearing you say that makes me go back in time to when my children were toddlers. I didn't have the self-awareness to even know that this felt uncomfortable or bad. I mean, I wish I had been kind of taught to know this is what should feel good. I mean, the norm should just be feeling good, not anxiety, not depression, not fear. And so I think that's great. It's just, I guess what I'm wondering is how the only way we can get people and mothers of really young children or mothers in general is to know that this is supposed to be a joyful, fun, happy thing. It isn't always all the time, but if you get to the point of living in constant anxiety the way I was, it was almost like I had to fall apart before I could finally take care of myself. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Oh, yes, absolutely. And and I don't want to I don't see anything wrong with that either, at least from my perspective now.
Of course. I love you, Tracie. I know, because you appreciate it all. I know. That's why I love you. Yeah.
Because,
I love that you just said that.
It's kind of like sometimes you just have to get to that point. And, I always think of, whenever you are asking, so, whether you're aware of it or not, you're constantly asking for an improved situation. So, when I did go into depression, and I was in it for a little while before I realized, that there was a different way, But when I came out on the other side of it, and I'm not out for good, I have not had the despair, the depression, the momentary thought of taking my own life, which I did have. It was very real back then. And of course, my next thought was my darling husband and my 3 beautiful children that snapped me back like a tether. But, coming out on the other side of that time of my life, it's just been an incredible ride. So I have such an appreciation for that time. And sometimes I say I would gladly walk through it again if I'm feeling really good. I would gladly walk through that. If I'm having a really bad day, sometimes a margarita or a glass of wine sounds better. But, we just, be playful about it. And, when I would be in a fetal position in my bed, there was no way I could be playful about anything. But when you get to that point, that's where it's a make it or break it point, because I was not about to continue living my life in despair. So a decision had to be made. And, and it's been a process. There was no owner's manual. There was nobody giving me directions. And I think that is what is so incredible about this group of people that we have the pleasure of interacting with in the Path Founders, is because we don't have all the answers, and yet we've been there. And so now we are able to offer support to anybody else who's asking. And
absolutely. Yeah. So if anyone out there is listening, we're here, we've been there, we know what it feels like, and we've all come out on the other end.
That's right. And that doesn't mean we don't dip back down occasionally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
That is part of being so beautifully human. And, it's like it's like my favorite analogy with the roller coaster ride. You know, you don't go on a roller coaster and just expect it to be the same elevation because you'd get so terribly bored. You know, you want the ups and downs and the twists and the turns. Because that's what makes it exciting. So if you can just remember that as you're going through it, as you feel yourself dipping down, know that you will be heading back up, you know. And again, I say that with so much love because I sometimes still forget that when I'm dipping back down. And
Right.
that's where the beauty of our friendships is like, hey, you know what? You're going to move through that. You know, keep Walt Disney, keep moving forward, you know, and look what that man created. So, you know,
right.
oh,
He created some good stuff.
Oh my
I know.
goodness.
Tracie, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, and I everything you said is kind of what I've been through too.
Yes.
So it's been so fun to talk with you.
Oh,
Anyway, thanks again. Wishing you all the best.
Bye-bye.
Take care. And thanks, Tracie Carlos, Parent Path founder. Bye.